Hello everybody, I'm Em. Welcome to my channel where this week we are returning to the very monumental task of cooking from every single one of my 114 cookbooks, and we do so by cooking with herbs. Alright, story time. The first time I ever cooked with herbs was also the first time I ever roasted a chicken. So this happened when I was in college, maybe about 10 years ago. I had just moved out by myself, and it was one of those days where I decided I needed to try something new with my life instead of just eating instant ramen. And so I decided to look up a recipe, and it was for a roast chicken. And I remember very vividly that it was a roast chicken that made use of two herbs that I use very frequently now, rosemary and thyme. And I roasted a little chicken with it. Since then I have roasted better chickens, but I always like to look at that one incident as my initiation into the world of cooking with herbs. So this book is a tiny one, but one that has proven to be quite useful, especially in these times. What I do like about it is that it is so wonderfully old-fashioned. I enjoy newfangled cooking methods and stuff, but once in a while I want something old-fashioned that looks like it walked out of a 1980s kitchen. These family circle books, which I have quite a few of, actually give me those vibes, and I absolutely adore it. I can't remember when I bought this, but all I remember for certain is that I picked it up along with maybe 5 other family circle books. They're all very small, but they do come with a few pretty good recipes, and at the time I thought when I bought this, it was very likely that I was trying to expand into cooking with herbs a little bit more. And being Asian, we do use quite an assortment of herbs, but none of them are the kind that you might find very frequently in Western cooking, like parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Yes, I quoted lyrics. When I bought this book, it was with the express intention to learn more about herbs, but little did I know I would end up not cooking from it for many years until now. So today I decided to make a breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of deal. So for breakfast I made marjoram frittata, which was really good actually. Marjoram is one of my favorite herbs. I use it to make Jewish penicillin with oregano and of course chicken. It's really good. This frittata is not by any means mind-blowingly new. It is very comforting in a way that breakfast should be, and I think that's great. For lunch I hopped onto the Asian train back to Asian town, and I made an Asian mushroom ragout, which uses coriander. Very useful now, I hear, because apparently it's good for fighting this virus that's been going around. Lots of people don't like coriander. If you don't like it, I would suggest replacing it with maybe celery leaf. If you don't like that either, just leave it out, it doesn't matter. And for dinner I made a gremolata chicken with far more garlic cloves than suggested by the recipe. I mean, recipe says 2 cloves, you got put 4 inside. So let's see how that goes. So, this being a breakfast frittata, you're going to need to boil some potatoes. And I use water from a recently bought kettle because I find it makes things move a lot faster. Once the water's come to a boil, add a bit of salt and 3 medium-sized potatoes. You're going to cook them for about 8 to 10 minutes until they're fork tender. Once that's done, you're going to rinse them a little with cold water so that you can handle them without burning your fingers off. But you'll see in a little bit that a little rinse is not nearly enough to make them, well, cold. Watch out for the steam when you cut them into about 1 centimeter rounds. It really doesn't matter how you cut it, really you're just going to be covering up egg anyway. So this is just for your own peace of mind. If you're pedantic, measure. Next, you're going to mince some garlic. Put that into a bowl. And then put in some marjoram leaves. I find that sometimes marjoram leaves can be a little bit bigger, and if that's the case then you can chop it up a bit, but these are really baby, so I figured there's really no point for it. I used about 3 eggs for those 3 potatoes, The recipe in the book actually says you should use 6 eggs for 3 potatoes, but I suspect their potatoes are a little bit larger than my baby ones. Salt, and then add some pepper. And then you're gonna whisk it up. While doing that, you're gonna add some cheese. Recipe says Parmesan. I don't have any Parmesan, therefore I am using cheddar. Use whatever cheese you want or have in the freezer. Next up, you're gonna heat up a non-stick pan and add a knob of butter. You want to make sure that your pan is oven safe, because afterwards you're gonna have to put this into the oven to get the top of the frittata to brown a little bit. Once the butter has melted, put in your potatoes in a nice even layer. Pour in your cheesy egg and top with the rest of your cheese. So you can cook this uncovered for about 7 to 8 minutes on very low heat, and then the bottom will just become golden brown. And then put it under the grill for about a minute or 2, and then you get this. If your pan is well lubricated, it should slide right off without any resistance whatsoever. You will notice that I have burnt the side of my frittata, but you know what? Nobody is here to judge. There you go. You can serve this with some tomato marmalade. I served it with sour cream, a little bit of marjoram. Now we move on to lunch, which is the mushroom ragout, which of course starts off with more garlic. If I had known at the very beginning how much garlic I'd be using today, I'd have chopped it all up at the same time. Next up, you're gonna grate some ginger. The recipe asked for much less ginger than this, but as I am an old lady and I really like ginger, I added a lot more. We're going to be browning all of this later, but for now we've got to take care of our mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms, fresh. So the stems for these mushrooms are absolutely no use. They're tough and rubbery, so nobody eats them. What you're gonna do is gently pry them away from the caps, and they're really easy to remove in this way. If not a little slippery, because, well, because one does escape my grasp. So these are medium to baby sized, and for those that are bigger, you should quarter them, which I did, and for those that are a little bit smaller, you can just halve them. This recipe doesn't seem like the most fastidious kind of recipe, which is good. So you're going to heat up some regular peanut oil with some sesame oil. Sweat your garlic and ginger. For adding some light soy sauce and some Shaoxing wine. Recipe says use sherry, I have Shaoxing wine and I'm Chinese, so it's obviously the superior choice. Next, add in your mushrooms and some 5-spice powder. This won't take much time at all. Give it a quick stir and then add some water. And about half a beef stock cube. I use a low sodium one. There's going to be a lot of umami in this. So you're gonna let that simmer for a little while. Again, about 8 to 10 minutes until it's bubbling nicely. And then stir in some finely minced coriander. I use the stems here and reserve the leaves for later. So while that bubbles away, we are going to start to boil some noodles. You can use any noodles, but I like the thick ramen type of noodles. You want to cook it until it's just al dente, not too mushy. And then plate up. You're going to drizzle in as much of the mushrooms as you want. I think I probably made enough for 2 portions. Top with some leftover cilantro, the leaves, which are nice and sprightly. And that really gives a nice earthy bite to it. And then that's it, that's lunch. Now, after all that cooking, dinner is a relatively easy gremolata chicken. And that basically starts off with some fresh Italian parsley, which I've just roughly chopped up and put into my food processor. You could just as well mince all this by hand, but after a day of mincing garlic, I absolutely did not want to do that anymore. Besides, I have the machine, why not make it work for me, right? Every lazy person's excuse. So after you put in your parsley and garlic, you're going to grate in some lemon zest. Add a bit of olive oil and salt. And that's it. We're going to give it a few easy pulses. It doesn't really matter if it doesn't become a paste. You just want to make sure that it's small enough and the flavors are released from the leaves and also the garlic. And then you can put it in to your chicken. Now obviously this is just enough for 1 portion, seeing as I don't want leftovers this time around. So you're going to take your chicken thigh and gently loosen the skin. Try not to rip it, because that will get messy. So once you have the skin loosened from the meat, you're just going to use it as a sort of pocket to put the filling in, the marinade in. And what this does is it keeps the meat very, very tender and moist, because there's a little bit of fat there as well from the olive oil. And once you have everything you need in there, you're going to tuck it. Make sure you tuck the skin properly around and try not to leave too much of the herb mixture outside, because that's going to burn in the oven, especially the garlic. So then you're going to drizzle it with a bit of olive oil and then roast in a 180-degree oven for about 30 to 40 minutes. And this was really hot. When I took it back out, it was sizzling. So, like I said, you can serve this with a side salad or something, but I prefer to eat it on its own. Drizzled over with the leftover sauce. Well, not sauce, leftover flavored oil from the tray. Don't get rid of that, that's where all your flavor is. So this breakfast, lunch and dinner thing I think worked out really well for me. For one, I didn't end up with a shit ton of food that I couldn't finish, and for another, I think I planned it quite well. I had carbs for breakfast and lunch, and once I came away from that excess garbage, it was good to just settle down with some protein. And you can obviously serve the gremolata chicken with mashed potatoes or herb rice or something like that, but if you find you'd rather just eat light for dinner and stick with the protein, then it's great on its own. Or you can also eat it with a little bit of lettuce as a salad, as a side salad, or you could also braise some baby gem lettuce or stir fry some peas. It's tasty, it's easy, and I think that's all we can ask for in these times. So if you have enjoyed this video and all my other videos, do consider subscribing. Click on the little bell button so you know whenever I update, and share this video. Tell me what you would like to see. The link to my full list of books is in the description below, so feel free to thumb through that and tell me what you would like me to cook next. Until then, I'll see you all next time.